All right, so in this video, we're going to go ahead and get started with level editing, and I'm going to show you how to set up a basic level so that you can get started in it and take off from there if you want. I'll be making future videos with more complicated things when it comes to level editing, such as portals or Sherman levels, things of that nature, but we're going to get started with the basics here. So right now, I'm in 3ds Studio Max 5, and we're going to actually start creating the level in here. But I'm going to show you my workflow as well from Blender to 3ds Studio Max 5 and then into game. But we're going to start in 3ds Studio Max 5. So if you take a look at your Island Thunder CD, there was an extras folder on it. And that extras folder has a Ghost Recon Level Builder PDF file. Open that up. You are going to reference this quite a bit when you're creating levels. And it has pretty much all the answers you could ever want inside of it. I highly recommend looking at it and reading it, but let's just jump into it, all right? So we want to make sure our unit setups are correct first. So system unit scale, 1 unit equals 1 centimeters. So if you go to Max 5, you go to Customize, Unit Setup, make sure it's set to metric meters, system unit, 1 equals 1 centimeter. You don't have to adjust the little slider or nothing. I think it starts by default on feet. You go to centimeters, click OK, and that's it. Metric, meters, okay. You're good to go there. That's how that works. All right. And so keep referencing this. Over time, you'll find all these different settings and how to tweak them and adjust them. But the default export settings, we'll go over that when we export. The ones I use the same setup as that, by the way. So the rotation here, this is for animating doors. We'll talk about that when I get into actually setting up doors. I'll do like a whole tutorial just on the doors, I guess. External links. I showed you in a previous video how to set up all of these files. So the sounds, debris, general effects, how to set up your plugins and everything. So if you want to check that out, I'll leave a link in the description on how to set up your plugins and all the sound text files and stuff. Okay, so in order to create a successful map file, you have to include a scene center. You need at least 1 Sherman level height, and you also need to include a room, and you need a rooms list. All kinds of fun stuff there. That's just for the map file, but in order to create a successful map that works in Ghost Recon, you need the map file set up correctly. You need an environment file, an SHT file, which is the hit collision detection system, or the 2D collision map. And then you need a mission file so that you can actually play with it in the game. Also, the textures need to be in RSP format, or Ghost Recon will crash, pretty much. That's how it works. Anytime you make a mistake, odds are Ghost Recon is going to crash, so just try to bear with me through this. We're going to get started, though, at the very top here with the map file. And we're going to be doing the scene center, which is real easy. It's generate a cube near the world origin. Location and size are not important. Make sure the cube is named scene center. No other properties are required for it. Once created, do not move the object. That's all it says. Do not move it, so don't move the object. Very simple in 3ds Max 5. Click over here, create a box, and I'm just going to drag and drop right on the scene center where it needs to go. Okay. Click and create. That's it. I'm going to adjust the size, 0.1 by 0.1 by 0.1. Now I have not moved it. It's good to go. We need to go to this little tab, and we can rename it Scene Center. Okay, and that's all you need to do right there. Make sure it is named lowercase Scene Center. Once you've done that, you have created it. You are good to go. You can select it, right-click on it, and change it to freeze selection, and it is now frozen. That's all you need to do for the scene center. If you ever want to unfreeze something, tools, display floater, you'll see that you have options to unfreeze here. So you can unfreeze all or by name, etc. That floater is important. So tools, display floater, because a lot of times when I'm working on things, I will freeze them just so I don't touch them, and I might need to adjust them later, and that's how I will do that. All right, so we have a scene center. Now we need a Sherman level height. Now, Sherman level heights are for the command map and the AI and being able to set things up in Igor so that you can make missions and whatnot. If your level only has one floor, like you don't have, think of it like this: you got a floor, that's your play area, and you had another floor above that floor, you would need 2 Sherman levels. But if you don't have 2 levels like that, you only need 1 Sherman level. So to get started, we're just going to create 1. Creating a second one and having the AI work with it and the command map and everything could be a little bit tricky, and I'll make another video about that in the future. But for starters, we only need 1. We need to make sure it's Sherman level height 1.0. Okay, that's what we need to name it as, and it's going to say you have to add the object properties level 1. So we're going to do that. It's real simple. It's just as easy as what we just did. We got to create a plane. I'm going to create it right next to that. Okay, just like that. And I'm going to change the size. Once again, I just do 0.1 just so it's there. And we have to name it Sherman. So Sherman level height 1.0. Okay, and make sure you spell that right or it's not going to work correctly. Sherman level height 1.0. All right, and once you create it with the object still selected, go to your tools panel here, the map editor, which once again I showed you how to get to this when you set up your plugins. And what you are going to do is go to Levels tab, where it says level height, type in 1.0, click OK. Once again, I'm going to freeze that. We're not going to be touching these anymore, and that's pretty much it. Now this is the basis of a level. This is the absolute bare minimum when it comes to setting it up, other than creating geometry and rooms and whatnot. So I like to save these usually, and that's whenever I create one like this, I will save it right off the bat. So we're going to actually create a new folder here. This is my working folder. This is not what goes into the game. So this is going to be what I call the test level. I'm just going to make it all lowercase and then one word, test level. Okay. And I'm going to save the file as test level. Now this will be saved as a max file, .max. So save it, and we'll leave it there for now. And what we need to do is create some more stuff to go along in this level. Okay, so every level is going to require that you have rooms. Rooms that start with 1. So for example, right here, 1, 10, 11, 101 will be outdoor rooms. Anything else will be indoor rooms. Now there is an exception here. I don't know if they listed it in this document. Okay, yeah. So there should never be a room 100 because it will cause the game to have issues and it might crash or something like that. But so don't name it 100. So we're going to do 101 instead. And it's really not that complicated. So in order to have a room, you have to have geometry, but in order to use it in the game, you have to have something tagged as a floor polygon. The floor polygon lets your characters walk on it, and basically it just has to face up for the most part. So it needs to face upwards. So if I create a plane in here real quick, another plane. Okay, I'm just going to drag and drop. We'll make it a little bit bigger, like 10 by 10 meters. Press Z. Whoop. Select the object. Make sure you're not editing the properties of it. Press Z, and it'll zoom out on it. I'm going to press G to turn off the grid because it's kind of just, you don't really need it. And now you have this plane created. You can certainly move it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to move it back to the scene center, 0, 0, 0. That. There we go. And what I need to do is assign a texture to it. So I'm going to go to Utilities over here, click Asset Browser. Okay. And then what you can do in this Asset Browser is go to your mods folder and then go into Original Missions here. Just to give you a quick little example. Go to Ghost Recon, your Ghost Recon folder. Then you go to Mods, Original Missions. I'm going to Map, m01.caves. And I don't know where all my textures just went, but sometimes you got to reload that asset browser every now and then. So let's go to GR Modding, Ghost Recon, Mods, Original Missions, Maps, m01.caves. You open that up. You have all these RSB files. These are textures from the original game. You can certainly use any of the textures from the original game if you want. or you can create your own RSP files and use those. In this example here, I just want to grab a ground texture. So we're going to grab M01 dot or M01 underscore ditch, drag and drop, and it applies the texture. Okay, so if I was to set up a material, if I pressed M, I could set up materials like so, but they're really not required for GR. All you need to do is use the asset browser, unless you're doing, and we'll talk about doing mixing the terrain texture in a future video. A lot of the terrain textures in Ghost Recon require a detailed map and then a generic color map, and it mixes it all together, so it does like a multiply, two textures combined, so you can have some really nice, interesting colors throughout the whole terrain, and then have some detailed texture work as well. But you can set that up using a material, but you don't. That's the only thing that really requires a material, in my opinion, when it comes to levels. There might be certain other situations where you might want to, but for the most part, that's it. And so we've applied this texture to this piece of terrain. We can UV map it again real quick. So we go to the modify panel, UV map, and now we can just change it down in size like so if we want, and that way it's a little bit neater. So you can use Alt and middle mouse button to orbit. So that's kind of the hotkey there, and then just use the middle mouse button to pan. And this is mostly set up correct. What I want to do is explain this. Whenever you're creating mesh in Max, sometimes your form factor will get messed up. So there's a little on the tool panel here, the little hammer. There's a reset X form. You can reset that. And what that will do is apply an X form modifier there. Basically, it kind of cleans everything up so that it isn't lost in 3D space. And if you right click on it, you can convert it to editable mesh, and it'll be a nice clean mesh now. It'll export wonderfully back into Ghost Recon. You won't have any problems. Normally anything in the stack here isn't going to work too well. Just convert it to an editable mesh before you go doing anything. Generally speaking, I don't remember if modifiers convert when you export, so, but good habit, just use base mesh. Anyways, moving on, we can go back to the map editor. This is a floor polygon, so we can click floor polygon. We can change its surface property if we want it to be concrete or wood or whatever the case may be. In this case, a lot of Ghost Recon just uses I think it's low grass for terrain. So we can use low grass here. It'll sound like grass when we walk on it. And click OK. That's good. And that's pretty much it for this little test scene, this test map anyways. One last thing we have to do, and that's the rooms. Okay, so remember, we're going to do underscore room number. Okay, and for this room here, I want to make it a room number. We're going to grab the floor polygon because that's the only mesh we have. We're going to click group, select it, click group. Otherwise, you'd select multiple objects and click group. And underscore 101. So it's an outdoor room, and it's 101. Click OK. It's now grouped together. That's set up properly. I'll go ahead and save this again right now, and we're going to actually go create something extremely essential here, which is when entering data in a room list, be sure to hit enter at least once after the last line, or the data may be misread, messing up the map file on export. So we're going to create a room list, but you have to have a blank space after the first line, so, or after the last line in it. Basically, the way this works is you create a text file, you name it roomlist.txt, all right, and then you include this information here with the Sherman levels that are used in that room. So 1, and then in case you have 2 Sherman levels, you use 1.0 and 2.0. That's a little bit more complicated. We just need 1 for now. What we're going to do is go to the mods folder. We're going to go to, you can see here, I have not created a mod yet. So what I'm going to do is actually create a mod by just creating a folder. We're going to call this test level. Now we got test level folder created. I know I'm going to need a map folder, and I'm going to need a mission folder. Okay. We're going to go into the map folder. We're going to create a new folder and call it test level. just like that. And now we're going to create new text document. Okay. We're going to call this room list.txt. I believe that was what it needed to be called, room list.txt. Yeah. And so we have that created. We can actually edit this, open it up. What I like to do is press Control V and paste that information in there, what we just snagged from right here. You can actually space this out the way it looks right here. So you can put an extra tab in there, put an extra tab in there, put an extra tab right there if you want. I mean, that's on you. I like to do those kind of things. I use tab keys a lot. So room 01, we don't have room 01, we have room 101. And we have levels 1 and then end. Put one tab between those. So I kind of organize things myself. Now remember what it said, you have to have a space at the bottom. So you have to press enter once right there where it says, be sure to hit enter at least once after the last line or the data may be misread. So you keep that little space there. Click File, Save. This should work. If we run into any problems, we'll figure out how to fix it, all right? So our map folder now, we have roomlist.txt, which is good. That's required. The essentials for running map in a game. You need room list. You need map, which we're about to export. You need an environment file, collision detection file, which is the SHT file, and the mission file. Okay? So let's go ahead and do this. Let's go back to Max. This is already set up and ready to go. Remember, this was already grouped. So we can file, save as, file, export. I'm going to save it real quick. File, export. Change it to map. This is going to be placed into your mod folder. Not in your working folder, but your mod folder. So test level, map, test level. And we're going to name this test level. And it will save test level.map. Okay. So we're going to press save. Now your export options come up. Like I said, I was using the default to the level editor document, the PDF file there. So weld vertices 0.1. You can change these things around if you really want. Clean vertex attributes 1.0. 3D Studio Max. Max units is centimeters. Export units is meters. Texture coordinates is invert Y Sherman. So we can click OK. And you'll see it gives you results here. It's just going to tell you kind of what it did. It erased some attributes. So 96 attributes to 25 attributes. Click OK. Scene exported successfully. Voila. All right, so we should be pretty much done with Max 5 there for now. And it should have exported test level.map. All right. All right. We need to create an environment file. And because I'm not really worried about setting up a proper environment file right now, I just want to get one that works. What I'm going to do is go into, we're going to go into Igor here. Click on Igor. Okay, it loaded up. We're going to go to Tools, Environment Editor, and I'm going to click Load. And this is the Island Thunder map folder. We're going to go to Mods, Original Missions. We're going to go to the map folder here. And we're going to go to M01 Caves. And you can see in here, there's an environment file. We're going to load it up. And we're not going to change anything in here. It's already using a backdrop image of caves and everything else. I'll show you how to do command maps later. But for now, we just need to swap the map. So we're going to click here. We're going to go to our mods folder, test level, click on map, test level, and now load our map file. Okay. And we're just going to basically use the caves environment and just swap the map for us. So we're going to save this now. We're not going to override caves. We're not doing that. We're going to go to our mod folder, test level, map, test level. And we're going to save it right in here. I'm just going to call it test level. And this is the test level environment file. So we're going to save that. Voila, we are done there. You'll notice that what I didn't do in my mods folder, we have map and mission, but it's not going to load properly. So we're going to go to original, or we'll go to MP2 actually. We'll use Island Thunders real quick, mods content. We're just going to copy this. Okay. We're going to go back to our test level, paste it. Right click on it, click properties, make sure it's not read only, otherwise you can't save it. So now we're going to actually go into it. You can see right here it says Island Thunder. We don't need all that. We're just going to call it test level. See, I set up my mods this way. I think it's a little bit easier. So we're going to call this GR1 mod. That's the author. For the web address, I'm just going to use Ghost Recon, and we're going to do .net, and it is server client. Okay, version 1. Save. Now, if everything has gone smoothly the way it should have, we should be able to open this in Igor. So if we go to Igor, launch it, we should be able to go to mods, and you can see here test level. Not check it. Click default mod for the editor, and close and refresh. It should be the default mod for the editor now. Also for Ghost Recon itself, you'll want to go into GR real quick. Go into options, mods, and make sure it's activated. If it wasn't activated, activate it, put it at increased priority, and then accept it. So now, I don't know if it just did it, but we're about to find out. If I go to my test level, map folder, test level, you can see we have the map file, we have the environment file, we have the room list text file. The export debug is a temporary file with the information on how long the export took and what happened. You don't need that. You can actually delete it. But we need the SHT file, and we need to set up a mission. So the easiest way to do this, of course, is using Igor. We're going to go into Igor. You'll see that I go in and out of this quite a bit. We're going to click New. It's going to ask New from Template. Just cancel. You don't need that. We're going to do Environment. We're going to select our environment. So we're going to go to our mod folder. Map, test level. This is our environment. So we're going to click that. Map shots we're not worried about right now. We're just going to call this test level. This is your map name. Okay, map size, small, available to custom game types. It's clear. We're not activating rain or snow. We're not overriding the environment, so we're okay. It should load up. There we go. We can now use WASD to move around in the 3D view. And you can see our little marker here. This is like a camera, like which ways you're looking. It doesn't update in real time, but you can certainly get around relatively easy by just, left clicking WASD. So this has appeared to work so far, but we want to test it in game just to make sure the floor polygon's working. The way you do this, the way I like to do it, is just place myself somewhere in the center of this, and I know that that's where I'm at, where these two lines converge. So I need to go to miscellaneous, click zone, and I am going to hold control, click, and I should be able to just drag out this thing now. You click once, let go of control, and you should be able to drag this out. This is a zone. There's a lot of different ways to use zones for mission editing, but if you take a look over here on the bottom right, the easiest one is insertion and extraction if you need it. But we're just going to do insertion for this. And let's take a look. Let's do mission. So edit mission properties, single player. We're going to name this mission test level. We're not doing an actual mission right now. I do like to switch everybody over to rifleman. That's just a preference. Requires unlocking? No. Just single player. Okay. Done. We can save this now. You can save this in your map folder, I believe, but just for simplicity's sake, I go to my mod folder, and that's why I created the mission folder. Okay, so I'm going to put that in here and call it test level. All right, and that is where you want to save it, test level.mish. All right, now I can exit it, and let's take another look here. I'm curious when. Okay, so the test level.sht file was automatically generated when we loaded it up into Igor. That's your collision system, so it was automatically generated. Anytime you go to update your map file, you will have to blow this away. You'll have to delete it and let it automatically regenerate each time. Otherwise, you'll have the old version, and then it'll cause errors, so just keep that in mind. I'll press Ghost Recon now, launch it up. And we're going to drag it out over in the center here. So if I click quick mission now I have all my missions unlocked, but if you go all the way to the bottom where it says test level, you'll find it there. You should find your level somewhere in here, whatever you named it. Test level, click start. You'll see there's no world map. The command map's still caves because we used it. But this is the starting point. Okay, I can auto assign now. And I'll be riflemen, go into the level, and voila, you can see it's not a very big playing field, but it is working. We have created technically a level. The floor, when there is no collision, there's no walls, it's sticky. So as a troubleshooting system, it turns sticky so that you can tell where the floor does not have collisions. This was kind of the way they implemented it, I guess, when they started designing the game. Just keep that in mind. If you run into sticky floors, it means you need to think about creating walls for you to run into, or hidden walls, borders, if you will, and whatnot. But other than that, it's working. And that's the point. You can make, you don't have to do the fancy ground terrain texture necessarily, but it does help on larger levels. But if you're doing like a smaller level where there's not much terrain, grass type stuff going on, you don't have to use that method. But it's created, it's working. All right, so just out of habit, what I like to do is when I go into GR and I play around on a level and I know I'm going to make updates to it, I always go back to my map folder and I will take testlevel.sht and just blow it away because I know I'm going to update it. That's just a habit of mine. Before you send the mod out into the world for people to play, just make sure it has a SHT file generated already so that everybody gets the same one. I think that would be pretty important there, but nonetheless, so that is the process right there. It's really not that complicated. It gets more fun than that, though. What I personally like to do is use Blender to do most of my modeling and texturing. I will create the foundation of the level, and then I will go back and add trees and stuff using 3D Studio Max 5, but I'll actually create most of my work in Blender and then export it out to 3D Studio Max 5. So the way this works is you don't need the camera, you can delete it. You don't need the light, you can delete it. You can actually start creating almost your whole level in here. Maybe this cube you don't even need, so I might just start creating, like press Shift A, create a plane. Same way we were doing before, creating the plane. Maybe I want a wall here. Let's try and do this. Create a wall, press Z, snap it up so that it comes up like so. Maybe I want a little ledge on it or something. I don't know yet. But we can do all kinds of fun stuff. So I can press E here, drag out another section, maybe add a loop. All kinds of fun stuff going on. Might make a little ditch, perhaps. Just keep in mind, you want to create everything very carefully so that it all lines up perfectly, first of all. So if you have split things going on, you want to make sure you merge them. Maybe I want a little ledge here. I'll pull it out, pull it up. All right, maybe I want a little bit more terrain going around. Maybe I don't want a ditch. Maybe I want something else. But you know, work your model. This is where you're doing all your work, in my opinion. You're gonna find that you want to do your work here more than in Max 5. So you might create some weird shapes and hills and things like that. I'm going to do a demonstration real quick of how GR does not like to be modified. And sometimes it really does not like certain things, so just keep that in mind. Might do something like that. Make a quick basic idea of a level. We might do another little section like this. So you start getting used to modeling, you'll be doing this a lot. I really like the idea of pushing this up like so. And maybe I don't want the whole thing to be extruded out like that ledge there, but maybe I just want that ledge. This is going to be a little bit sloppy, guys, so just bear with me. The most important thing to remember about level design is simpler is better, in my honest opinion. When it comes to like making a building like this, you know, I don't know why it's, oh, I know why it's doing it now. They're not connected, but you don't want to get lost vertices. You don't want to have too much complicated geometry. You just want to make it work. So I'm going to grid fill this, Control F, grid fill. Oh, and it didn't let me. All right. I think I know why, but we're just going to manually fill it real quick. This little corner does not like me right now. So we'll see what we can actually do here. We'll just manually fill it. I mean, you can always go back and do things like this too. That's technically not incorrect, I don't think. Might want to like clean it up a little bit though, so might want to just bring those back. Unless you're going to create I think it's called a parapet, which is where it drops in the like it has a little ridge at the top of the roof. I think I remember that correctly. It's called a parapet. So we're going to merge all this and just creating this level real quick. Maybe create an area here that's a fence along this area. We're actually not going to create it right here. So let's say this is just a fence in the back. All right. It's not, and you know, you measure these things, make them correctly. You know, don't rush through it like I am. But and then this area here might be just like a S0 or SZ0. This might just be like where a couple drain pipes come out or something. This over here might be terrain. And so it might come up. We'll try this. We'll see what happens. And this is where it gets interesting. So this is a demonstration of what GR likes and does not like. You're about to find out here. Always snap to vertex if you can, even if it's not part of the same object. Do that. So I'm going to move this back a little. I might actually move both of those back a little bit, something like that. And so I'm going to move this whole ridge back. G, Shift Z, so I can move. I'm not moving up and down or nothing. And this one, we're going to just move on Y right there. G, Shift, Z. We're going to move it back a little bit. You can change the heights of these two a little bit. And you're about to see exactly why GR, as great as it is, it doesn't like a lot of complicated geometry. It really likes squares, and it doesn't like to do anything it doesn't want to. So I'm going to press S, Y, 0, flatten that out. I want to move it back a little bit. Oops. You see how I edited that side over there? I don't want to do that. We're going to move this side in. Something like so. Okay. E, Z, E, Y. We're going to combine these two. A weird combination there. It's cutting. There's a cut that you can't see, but it's actually going like this. But it's there. Trust me, it's there. I'm going to grab this S0. That is too tall, in my opinion, but I want to sneeze. All right. You know, you could probably get away with making this a little deeper. I think that would work fine. Okay, here's the trick. All right, this is the big trick. In this document, when you scroll down a little bit further, it's going to have official sizes, and it talks about sizes. I usually make a reference cube that's 120 centimeters by 240 centimeters. So I got the rough idea of what a doorway looks like. That gives me the rough idea of what a person should be. So 240 by 120, you know, I'll create, I'll do it as a new object, but cube in, so it'll be 240 on Z. Ooh, not 240 meters, 2.4, my bad. And then 1.2 and 1.2. Okay, so now that will be appropriate. Okay, so now I'm using Blender 2.9, right? So I'm going to show you how to get this over to 3D Studio Max 5 now without changing sizes on me. And you're going to see how the hit detection system doesn't like certain things that I'm doing right now. It doesn't like this over here. It doesn't like that over there. But I'm going to show you my process of taking it from one system to the other. I'm going to make a little flat section here, a little flat section here. We're going to do another little flat section right there. And see, we can combine these by just pressing F. It creates a triangle, but GR maps really don't, it's not a big deal when you create triangles, trust me. It doesn't complain too much. All right. So now we know this is roughly the size of a person standing on the floor. That's roughly the size of a building over here. If I place it next to it, you can see that's not too bad, right? Okay, so we know the cube's about right. Oh, you know what? Let's bring that back. We're going to actually add it to this scene here as we export it. I got to name these things a little bit. This is just for internal purposes, so I can keep track of things. So I'm going to go to my mod folder or my modding folder. This is where I'm actually working on things. So we'll call this map 01. I'm just naming it map 01 for now. There's different things in here that I want to have different textures. So I'd actually prepare the textures in here. But I also think about how it's going to go into GR. So I know this is all going to be a floor polygon. And it's going to be grass texture. Now, if it was concrete, I would separate the grass and the concrete, etc. But so what I actually do is separate that. I'll separate it as selection. And then, you know, name them as you need them. So this is going to be, we're going to edit mode real quick. We need to select this guy. This is a fence. So we're going to separate that selection. These guys are concrete. So I'll separate those. And you'll notice that right there, it's not going to let me cut there, is it? I really want, so I'm going to delete this face since it's not letting me cut for some reason. I want to create a face there and a face here, because I want to select all of this and separate it. Sometimes I'll get away with doing things like this. Like these are both going to be concrete. So I press Control J. They're going to be in the same room. So these are combined together. This will be a cliff edge. Whoop, this area here. So this is going to be its own texture as a cliff edge. So I'm going to press P, separate selection. Okay. I don't mind that. Actually, Control Z back real quick. We're going to select this one too. We're going to separate all that together. So this will be grass. Oh, what did I do? What did I do right here? So you got to think about this a little bit, but sometimes mess things up by accident. Let's Control Z back real quick. Let's figure out what's going on right here. This looks fine. I'm going to press Shift H and hide everything real quick. Why this is here though, we're going to delete that by vertices. That should be correct now. You got to make sure your models are super clean. GR does not like little extras that don't line up with one another. It gets picky, and you'll find out real quick how picky it can be. So like this might be just the wall going all the way around. We'll just add concrete to the other one just for demonstration. So this is all being separated by what it is. You know, you got the floor, that's all dirt. You got the concrete or the cliff wall texture, and you got the grass needs to be separated from the other piece there. So we're gonna grab it, separate it. All right, and then you start organizing it, so you can just easily come in here and say, this is grass. You know, name it what it is, where it's going to be, grass floor, you know, and keep track of it. That's the most important thing. And then start applying your UV maps and textures here, but you won't apply RSB files. You're going to apply just JPEG files or whatever you use. We can call this one roof. Okay. We call this one fence. Drain. That's what I'm going to call it. I don't know. And what's this one? Oh, cliff. So we'll call this one cliff. I'll save this. Okay, none of this is UV mapped. None of it makes sense right now, but trust me, you want to add texture and UV map it here, but we're going to skip that part. We're going to do it in Max 5 just so we have something to look at. But this is... I don't even know what to call it. This is my reference for height and everything else. I want to make sure this is on the ground for the most part, because I want to stand next to it and look at it too, just to double check everything. Okay, so all of this is separated, and you can't, I mean, you could export it all as one object, but in reality, what ends up happening is you're going to spend more time in Max 5, and I really don't like working in Max 5. So what I'll do is I'll start with the floor polygon. I'll export this as a wavefront OBJ file. Pay close attention here. I have I've only changed a couple things. Sometimes I will do selection only, and I think that's pretty important because, well, actually right now I have to do it. The trick is it'll export the whole scene. So do selection only, make sure you have the object selected you want to export. No groups, material groups, animation, no. Scale 1, path, auto, forward is -Z, and up is Y, Y up. I believe those are default settings. We're about to find out. We're about to find out. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to apply modifiers, write normals, include UVs. We're not going to write materials. This should be Z up, and it should be Y forward, I believe. Okay, so we're going to export this to our modding folder. Levels, test level. And I will create in this folder a new folder and just call this temporary exports, because I know I'm going to be doing a lot of them. So whatever this is named, grass floor 1, I'll export it out. Now, why do I do it like this? Because I want it to come in as individual objects, so I got to do them one at a time. So you do, your basic coursework of your level in Blender, mapping it, texturing it, all this good fun stuff, and then you export it. And what ends up happening now is we're going to actually come in here, we're going to blow away underscore 101. We're just going to delete it. So now we're back to our basic standard here. I can click File, Import, Desktop, GR modding, levels, test level, temporary exports, and we can import wavefront OBJ files. Click on grass floor 1 OBJ, open, and we're going to see here pretty much all we want to do is import it, select groups to import default. We're not really changing anything here except for vertex scale, change it to 100. Okay, when you change it to 100, it'll come in, it says unsupported commands 1. That's fine. Click OK. We should see an exact replica of this here as we would see in Blender. And so take a look. X-axis is running, turn these on if you need to see it, but take a look at where X and Y is. Okay, the X-axis is going this way and that way. Y is going through this way. So we should see the same over here. Y is going through that way and X is going through that way and Z is going up. One last thing I want to check with that. It should be fine, but if I move this to the right, it should be positive X. Okay, if I move it right in Blender, it should become positive X. And you can see that it's actually, press N real quick, it's actually negative X. I don't know how that worked out, but it should be turning positive X, not negative. So there's a little bit of a problem there. That does bother me. I'm thinking it's inverted somehow now, and it is. So let's try this. Let's go back to Blender. Same process. Export OBJ file. We're going to export right on the same OBJ file, but instead of it being a Y forward, it's going to be negative Y forward. Click export. We'll see what happens here. And we should be able to delete this. Re-import now. It should be in the same folder. Grass floor 1 OBJ. And we're going to do the same thing. Click OK. And we should be looking at the same object now. So we just inverted the Y from positive to negative. X is still going the same way. Y is still going the same way. And now we have an actual setup taking place. So now we know the settings. And that's important to remember those kind of things. All right, because now we're going to do the same process with every other little object. So we're going to do File, Export, Wavefront OBJ. Make sure it's got the same settings. We might call this building walls. Okay, export it. It's going to get a little bit confusing here because every time you, no, we're not importing. Every time you import something, it's going to come in as default. It's going to ask you to rename it. So you're going to have to rename it if you want to. For now, we're not going to do that, but if you want to keep track of things, do that. And then just keep doing this over and over. So we got building, roof. Normally I would name my buildings and everything. So it takes a little minute to export, surprisingly, even though they're real simple objects. It might be because I'm recording, but I'm not sure. Um, Generally speaking, though, what I really like to do, and I'm just gonna say it, um, and we'll actually do it in a little bit, but we're not gonna actually do it in this video. I mean, we're not gonna actually do it, but what I actually that's export FBX. Let's do export. Wait, we'll do the fence. And so a lot of times I'll just separate the floor and leave all the walls as one object, all the other objects as one thing. That way I can test the floor and see where I'm having collision issues. So I know for a fact that this corner over here will have collision issues. It just will. Anything at a slant like that does not create a good collision detection, usually. There's a way to go about rigging things for the game. I'm going to talk about as I get this into GR here, and we're going to test it. I don't remember all what I've exported and what I've not exported. So it's going to take a little while, apparently. A little bit slow. But normally you can do most of your work here in Blender and then just do exactly what I'm doing right now and just exporting it. And it works out just fine. You can see it lines up just perfect, comes in just perfect sizes. It's not a real big deal. We're gonna actually start importing. So we got the grass floor, we got the walls, we need the building roof. So we're just gonna click OK, OK, skip. Oh, did it not do it because I clicked skip? I thought it would just automatically rename it. Building roof, OK, 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 yeah. So I guess that works. All right. So we're just gonna keep importing. We're gonna do the fence. Just gonna let it auto rename just because I'm being lazy. We're gonna export this here, grass 2. I know it seems like a nightmare, but trust me, it's so much easier to do it this way. Grass 02. It's so much easier to create things in Blender and then take it over to Max 5 and not have to deal with too much. I'll bring the cliff in now. Auto renames. Import. Grass 2 should have came in already. It should have exported. I hope. Okay, it did. Now I'm going to grab these guys, file, export. I'm just going to name them concrete. So we got everything coming in now. It's looking good. That's the last piece. Oh, you know what? No, this guy is the last piece. So we're going to export that, FBX. No, not FBX. I keep clicking XP. I'm so used to using FBX files now. So wavefront OBJ reference. All right, so we're going to import the concrete blocks. Okay, now we can import reference. Click OK. We're going to make that concrete as well. All right, so this is the trick. This is a pretty much an imported, ready to go map at this point. It would be UV mapped and textured and all that fun stuff, but you would just import the models and reassign RSP files to them. And then you would start rigging portals or whatever else you might need as well. You can even create some collision items in Blender and then bring it in this way. And it's a lot, in my opinion, it's easier to just kind of batch import everything and create it in Blender than it is to just create them in Max. That's the idea behind it. But we'll go to the asset browser. Let's go ahead and find let's find some actual textures that we might want to use. Okay, my asset browser broke again. And it's broken again. Okay. So we're going to go to the GR folder. We're going to use original mission map. We're going to do farm floor. I just want to find some interesting textures here and use them. So I might use village. Village might be pretty nice too. I think village has what I need in it. So we got got a couple different things going on here. No good terrain textures though. That's because GR did their textures a different way. So I like this concrete floor. I'm going to use that there. It just changes the color. But I'm going to use brick wall on the side. I think that'll work fine. There is a riverbed texture right here. I like that one. I'm going to use for this. We're going to go back to some of these have different textures that are pretty good. So here's ground grass. We're going to actually toss it in there. We're going to put that same ground grass texture up there. And so we just need M05 concrete here. And we just need a fence texture now. Hopefully the asset thing doesn't wig out again. So I know there's a fence texture for this level. I don't know if it's in this map folder though. I don't know where it is, to be honest. Sometimes the maps use textures from other maps, which is it happens at times, not too often, but it does happen. You can see that it wigged out again. The asset browser does not like being ran in a virtual machine. It really doesn't. It's just like, I don't want to do what I want. It just wants to do what it wants to do, more or less. So mods levels. Let's do MP2 or MP1. I know MP1 map refinery should have some fencing. Yeah, we'll use rusted rails, rusted pipes. Got all kinds of stuff. Wood fence right there. Look at that. That's what I needed. Okay, so nothing's UV mapped. Oh, one last thing. We need to have everything has to have a texture, or when you get it in game, I believe it crashes. It might not crash, but I'm pretty sure it crashes. I'm almost positive. So under your modifier here, we're just going to do UV map. We're just going to do a simple box, and we're going to make it like 10, 10, 10, or whatever we want to make it. You know, take a look at it. See, I would do all that personally in Blender. So when I get over to Max here, I'm not worried about it so much. Oh, customize preferences, viewport, configure driver. Yeah, make sure it's on 512 and match bitmap. Usually that helps out. So I'm just going to scale this so that it looks about correct. 5 by 5 by 5. This is a rough UV map. That's all it is. UV map this one box. And we're going to do 10 by 10 by 10. Probably could do 5 by 5s as well. It's not too bad. The roof, same thing. So we're going to do 5 by 5 by 5. Oh, 5 by 5s. Needs to be a box, so we'll do 5. So that's concrete now. This floor texture, we're going to UV map it. Nothing crazy, 10 by 10. It can be planar. It doesn't have to be cubed, because it's going to do that number. can actually make it a little bit smaller, 5x5s. All right. UV map the cliff wall. Box it if you want, but you could do planner as well. So maybe like 10x10. What you'll notice is that this one, like on this side, it looks fine. On this side, it turns a different direction. This one, you might actually want to unwrap appropriately. In Blender, super easy. In Max 5, it's kind of a headache. So keep that in mind. You might just do a box and then do 10x10. That might fix it. If you right click, subobject, gizmo, sometimes you can press R, or not R, sorry. And sometimes you can rotate them, get them to do what you want. Sometimes they don't. So you can see how that's working out not too well. There's different options. So face is pretty good usually. That doesn't always work though. And so you can adjust the tiles. Sometimes that'll work. Realistically, you would want to go to unwrap, edit, come in here, do all your unwrapping. It's just a pain in Max. I really use Blender for this kind of stuff. I'm telling you, texture in Blender. We're going to leave it as is and just roll with it. You know, we're not going to mess with it too much. And you can see here again, it thinks it's a website. It's not, sorry. Still has an issue. Let's see if we can get it to actually work here. No, it's not going to. All right. There's a way to make it a favorite. So if I go modding, Ghost Recon, mods, test level, map. Oh, we're using we'll just do mods folder, favorite, add to favorites. And then so now you can always just go to your favorites there. Oop. All right. MP1. I forgot where I got this texture from. It was original mission map. I wanted to use the same one, but it was Embassy, I think, right? You can see when I finally get the the Embassy folder, it doesn't load. I hate when it does that. All right, let's try it again, Sam. Original missions, map, Embassy. Oh, it really does not want to work now. Thumbnails. All right, maybe I got to manually navigate to it again. It does not want to do it. No, it needs to be. Well, no. It has really said no this time. Yeah, so you will run into problems in 3D Studio Max, I think, if you're using the virtual machine. I don't see any other way around it. You're just going to have problems with it constantly. I've ran into a number of issues. It's interesting that it opened up this way now. Instead of thumbnail pane, it's Explorer pane. So I can go into maps, Embassy. So we have the files here, but I wanted to see them. So lucky me, this is it. Try again, Sam. See, it opens up to about what I want, but mods, original missions, maps. Maybe I'm doing something wrong here and I just don't know it. But there we go, finally. Where's that grass texture now? Ground right here. Oh, you know what? I already had it applied to it, didn't I? I just had to UV map it. Dun dun dun. Sometimes my brain does not work. I usually make the textures outside of the walkable area a little bit bigger, just because I think it looks nicer. UV map box 4x4x4. Okay, this needs a UV map as well. 2 by, oh, you know what? We'll do 1 by 1 by, we'll do a box. There's 2. Okay, this one was a box, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, all in all, this could be a level. Real quick, I'm going to convert to a editable mesh here. I can still separate things if I want. Oops, don't do that. Don't clone things. So I can still take certain things and separate them out if I wanted. I can still make modifications in, no, in 3ds Max 5. I just don't recommend doing it. Make them in Blender, get the basics of your level going, and then worry about all that other extra stuff. So I might just put right here, I might detach this. It's kind of up to you on how you're going to do it. But I want some like mud texture, which I think we can get on maybe Night Battle. It loads the textures, which it just does not want to work, I tell you. Every time I'm going to have to do this, I have a feeling. And why is it not coming back as web plane? I don't want the web plane. So we're going to go back, modding, or Ghost Recon mods, original missions, maps, and we're going to do, we'll do swamp. I know there's mud in swamp. There's got to be. I feel like there has to be. Or battlefield should work. I know there's a battlefield texture. I'm pretty sure there is. Wow, no mud. So Caves has that one texture, the ditch texture. We'll use that one. Okay, and then we can actually UV map that. Oops, Control Z. Select the object that we want. UV map it. We'll do a box. We'll do 10 by 10 by 10 real quick. Let's see how that works out. We want it to be roughly like that. Yeah, right there. Look at that. So 5. 5's better. Okay. So that's how you can kind of match a texture with another texture. The GR does that trick a lot, where they'll put little grass edges on things. So just keep that in mind. That's a useful technique. So most of this is set up for the most part. What I want to do is select it all, convert to editable mesh. So it's going to get rid of all the UV modifiers on it and everything. I do need to tag things as what they are. So this here, right, is going to be a floor polygon. So we're going to go to map editor. We're going to tag it as floor polygon and low grass. This is going to be tagged as a floor polygon, and it's going to be we're just going to do, I don't know what I want to tag it as. I guess we'll do mud. Okay. This is, by default, I believe they're tagged as concrete, I think. So just keep that in mind. This is not a floor polygon, so, you know, we want it to be concrete. Same here. You don't have to tag it as anything except for what it is, concrete. The fence, we want to be wood. Whoops, wrong button. So we're going to do wood. You also have, you You can set things as penetrable or whatever the case may be. These are concrete, so I'm going to just set them as concrete real quick. And once again, I don't know why I keep pressing that button. It's calling me. Concrete. And this is not going to be a floor polygon, but it is going to be, I'm going to tag it as grass. Okay, so everything should be tagged now. You can go back through and check it. What I'm going to do is save it real quick just in case I accidentally hit something I don't want to. Oh, this guy needs to be tagged. Certain things, you see how this is over here? I don't like that. All of them are going to have that same pivot point from the original model that we created. Because the pivot points of each model, look, they're all, the origin point, they're all there. I personally, I don't mind that if I'm working in Blender, but if I'm working in Max on something and I move it around or something, that'll drive me nuts. But the idea here is whatever you do in Blender, when it gets into Max, you don't want to modify it really. You don't want to really modify it. It should be kind of set and ready to go. So the way I go about doing it is I create the whole mesh of the basic play areas. I want to make sure I have my collisions working correctly. I want to make sure I have borders and boundaries. I want to make sure I have all my textures set up. And I'll bring it into Max little by little. If I have to make any last minute changes in Max, I will. But generally speaking, I want to avoid that at all costs. So I should be able to go, keeping the ideas of what GR likes and doesn't like in Blender, build it in Blender, and then just bring it straight into Max. And I'll just set it up and export it for the game. I don't make any actual geometry modifications in Max 5 unless I have to. That's the idea. That's how that works. So, I might be doing last minute changes. It should come in looking something like this. And then I might grab whatever I want for this specific room. This is only one room. So I might group it all together, grab it all, _101. Okay. If I press H, I have an object list. I should only have my rooms listed by the time I'm ready to export it. Because the scene center and everything is frozen, it shouldn't show up. So I can press Control S real quick. I should be able to export this now. Testlevel.map. Yes. Everything's still set up the way it was. Okay. We'll see how it looks in game now. We're going to save this as well. So the trick here is that if our mod folder, the test level folder, map test level, there should be no SHT file. So when we start GR, it will generate it, and we won't have, we'll have new collision detection system. If you don't delete that SHT file, it will just use the one that's in there. So now we should be able to go in here, click start. And voila, we now have a level. It's not the prettiest of levels, but it's a working level for the most part. There's things that will and will not work well. So this concrete wall is a 90-degree angle going straight up. It should have good collision detection. It's high enough. It's not going to have any major problems with that. That is why I say when you create things in Blender, think about how they're going to behave in GR. So like the fence should be fine. Where this fence and this concrete mixes or meets up should mostly be fine. This concrete should be mostly fine. This even here, right? This little wall here should be pretty fine until about the end of it. It might start getting a little glitchy right around here. Sometimes when you slant things back and they don't create a 90-degree angle, they do become a little bit glitchy. Sometimes they work. You'll see right there. See that one? That's just glitchy. I'm sticking on it. There's no floor. There's no collision. Okay, so that is something that can be a problem. It's going to annoy some players. It'll annoy you. It'll get AI stuck on it sometimes too, so it's doing it right here as well. Sometimes that happens. It's getting sticky. But right here, it's pretty good. So you see how those 90-degree angles is like the sweet spot for GR. It likes those. So I'm going to show you how to fix those real quick. It's really not that complicated. But what we do need to do is go into mods folder, test level, map. I should just leave this open, huh? We're going to delete that SHT file. We're going to go back into Max 5. We're going to see if I can remember how to do this. But I would do this in Blender because I know things like that will be an issue. But you don't always have the option of doing it in Blender. Sometimes you just get into Max and it's like, oh, it's going to do what it wants. So this object here, this is the floor. I'm going to go ahead and select the floor. Oh, this is the whole room right now. Sorry. You got to group, ungroup the object, and then now you can move the floor around. You can see I'm using the floor. I'm going to go to convert to editable mesh. I'm going to grab edges. I will turn on edged faces here. So right click on perspective, click edge faces, and I will click control and I'll select all of these. And I will press E. Actually, I don't even know if E works. Let's see. No, it doesn't. We're going to extrude it right here. So we're going to extrude. So we're going to press extrude. We're going to use a little arrow next to it. We're going to slide that up pretty high. Man, that's touchy. So what do we need? I would do at least, I'm going to extrude it at least 2. At least 2. I would probably do more, to be honest. Just to be on the safe side, you know, you can extrude it 4 or 3 or something like that. But these polygons right here, what I will do with them is I will not duplicate them. Sorry, I keep pressing the wrong keys. I'll select all of them real quick. I will detach them. Click OK. So now I have this object here. I'll turn this into an invisible barrier. I don't even have to reassign texture to it or nothing. It can stay just like that, in my opinion. I'll click Map, Editor. Not a floor polygon. It has no surface properties. Not collidable 3D, and not rendered. Click OK. A lot of times, I just like to clear the UV map on it. UV map. Right here, just apply UV map, reset it or clear it. Actually, you got to use unwrap, I think. Unwrap UV. Edit. Select all of it. Mapping. There used to be a way to clear it. I swear. I thought it was a modifier. All right, maybe I'm just thinking of something else. Just reset. All right, well, just make it 0, 0, 0, and that'll clear it. Convert to editable mesh. There we go. So that's, you could do that. I just like to have my boundaries and borders and things like that. Just no texture on them, so I know which ones they are. Because now this is like the fence, and it goes all the way around, except this won't show up in game because we tagged it as non-rendered and non-3D collidable. So we can once again select everything. So we press H, select all, select, group it together, underscore 101. So we have our room now. I'm going to save it, export it, test level.map. I'm going to go ahead and replace it. Okay, the SHT file was deleted. So we'll be able to go into, why am I doing all that? We'll be able to launch GR here and go back and test it. And it'll create the SHT file as soon as you launch GR, I believe. So we'll have a quick mission. Scroll down again. Sorry this tutorial kind of dragged on forever, but I want you to have a good, firm understanding of how to get these levels kind of started and going. All right, so here we are. We're back in the level. You see it looks the same. And so these are the doorways, the doorway size from the document. It looks a little too large to me, but you know that's kind of on you whether you're going to try to cheat the system or not. It might create errors, it might not. Sometimes at the edges of that area, it might have created a problem. So like right here, you might have to extend the invisible fence, if you will. But all this area now should have a nice collision detection, and you won't have any issues, or you shouldn't. You shouldn't have any issues. I'm not going to say you won't, but you know, there's a little bit of trial and error to create maps in GR. Trust me, you'll get used to that real quick. And so now everything has nice collision detection. If you run into any other problems anywhere else, you'd have to fix those as well. You can create invisible hit systems. So your characters can slide along them instead of getting stuck, which is pretty important. All right. And lo and behold, we have the start of a level. This is not the prettiest of levels right now. You have to, you know, finish creating your level the way you want it to look. You have to add lighting to it, create the command map for it, and then create a mission to actually play with. But, you know, it's a process. We got most of the process started, and the other ones aren't too bad. Command maps can be a little bit frustrating. I'm not going to lie. But Sherman levels, pretty frustrating. Command maps, sort of frustrating. They're not impossibly hard to do. It's just they're just not as much fun, I think, as creating the model of a level. You know, to me, this is the best part because now you get whatever you create, you get to come in here and just see firsthand and walk around it and everything else. So that's the general idea. I'll talk about terrain texture in another video. We'll talk about portals, Sherman levels, and some among various other things. But if you shoot the ground or the wall, you'll see that hits as concrete. That's grass. It'll sound like grass that I'm walking on, and that's wood. So that's kind of how you got to do things. All right. And I shouldn't be able to shoot. That barrier is invisible. So I cannot shoot that barrier. All right. And so, yeah, that's that. I'm going to have to start preparing for another level tutorial in the future. Honestly, I don't understand everything there is about level making. I know a couple tips and tricks here and there, but that level editor PDF file, don't forget that. That's going to teach you everything you need to know. That's where I'm going to go learn everything that I need to know. You know, I've looked at that thing for a couple years, you know, as I've made levels throughout the past, you know, and it's just kind of weird because I've never actually released a level mod, but I've made levels and I've ran around on them and I've killed people and stuff. But same as characters, like I've made characters, but I just never, I don't know. I always liked making weapons, so I always stuck with weapons. I never really got into creating the levels and everything. I think it's just the projects were too big. They took too long. But, you know, with Blender, how fast you can use Blender and then import it right into Max and for the most part have just a bunch of sub-objects everywhere laid in and ready to go. It's pretty awesome because even for example, let me just get out of here. Like we've already done all this jazz here, but let's say I wanted to add something. Let's say I just wanted to add something, and it's not part of the main hit. Like the main hit areas is what I try to focus on first, but maybe I just want to spice it up and add more details here or there as I create a level. So maybe these two guys, I want to be like air conditioner units on top of that building. I can just hit export wavefront OBJ reference, no, AC, we'll just call it AC. You know, I can quickly export that. Man, it exported a lot quicker that time. I don't know why. Did I export it as an OBJ file? I can import it. AC, OBJ, okay, okay. Okay, and voila, look. So, you know, define your play area, your big features, your buildings, like where your actual building will go and where the doors go in it. And so you make all the like hard hitting geometry that has collision, the play area, if you will. You do all of that first, and then you load things up with props after. I think that's probably the best way to do it. Do your big main features, and then test it all, see if it works, then start loading in props. Test it again. And you shouldn't have any major problems. Shouldn't, but you might. Anyways, thanks for watching this video. I know it ran on and ran on and ran on, but you get the idea. You know, it's really not that bad. You just ungroup and regroup it together, so you can keep adding things to it. You can do this by room later on, so when you want to add certain props to certain rooms, you'll only have room list here, and you can just work on individual rooms one at a time, because you might take this room and just be like yeah, I just want to freeze this or hide it or something else, you know, use tools, display floater. So I might just hide it, or I can unhide all, you know. So you might want to just work on one room at a time, and that's the key. You know, just take with this information what you will, apply it in the ways you think works best, and hopefully it'll work out for you. Nonetheless, thanks for watching again, and that's it for this video. Thanks for sticking through it. All right.